Now, God, as we go into preach your word, Father, we pray now that you crucify the flesh and resurrect the spirit. Father God, we pray now that no arrogance, no self-promotion, no self-grandizement will glory in your sight. Father God, I pray that they do not see me, but that they see you in me. Hide me behind the cross. Even now, God, anoint these lips of clay. Let me speak fluently so that I may release what you've placed in me. Now, Father, I pray that the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in thy sight. O Lord, my strength and my redeemer. Psalms 127. Psalm 127. And I'm going to be reading from the New American Bible, the Revised Edition. Psalm 127, verses 3 through 5. There you'll find these words. Certainly, sons are gifts or are a gift from the Lord. The fruit of the womb, a reward. Like arrows in the hand of a warrior are the sons born in one's youth. That ain't telling you young folk go out and make kids now. It's not what that means. Blessed is the man who has filled his quiver with them. He will never be shamed, for he will destroy his foes at the gate. I'll read it one more time for your hearing. Certainly, sons are a gift from the Lord. The fruit of the womb, a reward. Like arrows in the hand of a warrior are the sons born in one's youth. Blessed is the man who has filled his quiver with them. He will never be shamed, for he will destroy his foes at the gate. Again, we are in Black History Month. You may be seated. And I feel it is my responsibility to yet again speak to our community. So I want to talk to you from this thought in our minds for the next few moments. The reason they moved the black man. The reason they moved the black man. Okay, it's a little cool in here, so y'all need to do something with this heat. It was in 1601. A social welfare act was enacted by Parliament called the Elizabethan Poor Law. It was in 1896 that the Supreme Court enacted or adopted a doctrine called separate but equal. Sadly, this was an act that was adopted that barred blacks from full participation in many of the social programs because it was the state that would determine who was eligible and who was the ones that were in need. There was a welfare program called ADC, and many of you, if you're got a little bit of life on you, you remember the ADC office. You know, it was later changed to the Family Independence Agency, better known today as DHS. That program was put in place, Sister Carolyn, as a state-operated program, basically called the Mother's Pension Program. She's shaking her head, she know about it. The sad reality is, though, that this program was predominantly for white widows. They were the ones who were to be the primary beneficiaries of this program. It was Jim Crow laws and the separate but equal doctrine that resulted in the creation of what's called a two-track service delivery system that separated how blacks and whites were treated. And I come to let you know, for the black folk, this system was anything but equal. Developments in the 1950s and 60s further pushed the disadvantaged black families to a brink of destruction. It was New York City's man in the house rule that required welfare workers to make unannounced visits to determine if fathers were in the home. And if there was evidence found that there was a male inside the home, I'm going to get to my text in a minute, just bear with me. If there was found that there was evidence of a male in the home, then their checks were ceased. It was 1964 when President Lyndon B. Johnson introduced a series of legislation known as the War on Poverty, which, by the way, that war on poverty still has not been won. The reality is, my beloved brothers and sisters, the hardest thing for a black man in America to do is to be seen as an innocent man. And even if he is found to be guilty, the hardest thing for him to do still is to get equal treatment. I'm going to preach it till I'm through. I pray you don't get mad at me today. One of the things I heard Dr. Tellis Jerome Chapman say is that you must know the difference in preference and in purpose. And I've come to let you know that they fear, or the fear that many have of the black community, is not your ability to fight with sticks and guns, because they have sticks and guns. The biggest fear that they have for the black community is the unity that can come from the black community. Oh, you might as well preach, Pastor. I'm going to do the best I can. And I want you to know that they really would prefer that we live in preference and we don't live in purpose. Because to live in preference means I put my needs above yours, but to live in purpose means I realize that we have been jointly fit together. Even if we don't always agree, we can all agree on one thing. When we're operating in purpose, the agreement is we've got to do better. Okay, I know y'all wanted me to hoop and holler today. That might not be it today. And beloved, many people, and I want you to get this in your spirit, many people drive off, or they thrive off of our disunity and the destruction of our black men and our black boys. They really don't want them to come together, because as long as we are still tearing down the family, as long as the black community is still at odds, then that there is more money for them, because their division, or our division, helps to feed and support their prison pipeline. Our division is what helps them promote their cradle to the cell mentality. They'd rather see our boys in jail and in the ground rather than in the college classroom. They're good with us running on the football field as long as they can control the narrative. But I've come to let you know, when we unify, we learn to hold one another accountable. And we have the ability to handle one another on a brand new level. When we learn to hold one another accountable, we learn to deal with each other on a level of encouragement. When we hold one another accountable, we learn to deal with one another on a level of empowerment. But if we keep feeding into the negative narrative of our black men and our black women, then all we have is just our hatred for one another, our hatred for ourselves, and discouragement for the community in which we serve. Can I serve notice for somebody today? And I need you to tag a black man and let him know that your presence does not have to be perfect, but your presence must be present. Too often we look at TV and we want to live according to the standards they've set on television. Can I be honest with you? They are always moving the goalposts for what they say the goal is supposed to be. So I've come to encourage you, stop chasing a goal that they never intended for you to reach. There are standards that have been set that they never intended for us to reach. And now we must teach our sons how to protect our families. And we must teach them how to fight with tools that go beyond the streets, but can help them make deals in the boardroom. No longer can we keep telling them about the struggle bus of hating everything and their own kind. We got to get beyond the frustration of what we were and start building on what we can be. Too long we've sung the Negro anthem, we shall overcome. What we gonna overcome if we can't overcome our own self-hatred? What are we going to overcome if we can't overcome the fact that they continue to tell us, if you want assistance from the government, then don't let the man come back home? I'm going to preach today if you let me. And I've come to give you an urgent message to let you know why exactly those programs were put in place to help white families stay together, but pull black families apart because they didn't see any value in the black folks sticking together. But they understood that if the black man and the black woman would stay together because the black man was strong, then he would teach his son to be strong, and he would teach his son how to stand up with his back straight. And so what they wanted to do was strip the homes of the male presence. They wanted to strip our homes of the influence. And here in our text, it outlines for us the reason why they did it. See, the problem, this text deals with what must be installed in our young men so that they can produce it as grown men. Watch the text, because we have to learn how to teach our boys at a young age that they know how to deal with life, and they know how to properly talk. They know how to articulate, because everything can't be yo and this and that. No, we've got to teach our boys to speak the King's English. And I want you to know, for some of you who may have said it, when you talk with proper diction and you use the ing at the end of words that needs to be used, and you know the difference between there, and there, you're not talking white, you're talking right. Can I help you? In other words, we got to use our educational prowess so that they know that they don't have to pick between Martin and Malcolm, but they know when to be Martin and Malcolm. What are you saying? I'm not saying that God wants us to always just lay down and take it. No, that's the reason we had the Black Panther Party. That was the reason for Black Lives Matter. But we cannot just get riled up for a moment. We've got to keep it going for a lifetime, because change does not come overnight, but change comes with consistent progress. Change comes because somebody determined in their mind they ain't gonna take it. No. We have a responsibility to teach our children how it is that even if mama and daddy don't work out, the family is still the family. You got to quit being mad at him because he's no longer in your bedroom, but he can still come and visit in the living room. And we've got to stop talking bad about each other because what we wanted for each other didn't work out the way we wanted it to work out. Sometimes teeth and tongue don't always agree, but the one thing we should all agree on is that we refuse to let another one of our sons die. We have a responsibility to make sure that our young men know how to respect women, but at the same time, woman, quit dogging that man because you and him didn't work out. Here it is. They wanted to make sure that as they told the women from that New York law that if the man was there, you couldn't get assistance. And so now because the man is out of the home, that boy grows up not seeing his father. And because he grows up not seeing his father, he develops a level of resentment. And now every black man he can't stand because mama's talking about how bad he did her. But they don't talk about how the system ripped them apart. And I've come to tell you the reason they don't want our men at home, the reason they don't want our men teaching our sons is because in the hands of a man, a son is a warrior. Our sons are tools to be used. They are tools because, watch this, the welfare system was never designed to help the black family. Why are you proud you getting state assistance? It was never designed for you. I'm going to tell you the truth. It's more of them on welfare than it is of us. You check the numbers if you want to. But watch this. Because lest I bore you. Black man, I want you to know that you have a responsibility to come back to the community and help us to build and get things back in order. It is time out for us fighting over street names that have no value to our legacy. See, understand when we had the Black Panther Party, when they had the Bloods and the Crips, the reason they had those gangs, what they are now, is not what they were intended to be. In the old days, the reason those institutions were started was because they had a sense of community, Sister Carolyn, and they wanted to make sure that they was going to defend their own because what nobody else gonna do it. Help me, God, while I talk in here. And I want you to know now, we are fighting over colors. We're fighting over shoes. We're stealing from one another. And then we got nerve to complain about how our communities are falling apart, how the houses in our community has lost their value, how our kids have no respect for their elders. But the reason that's happening is because the black man has been removed from his proper place. And because of his arrogance and his frustration, he decided I wasn't going back. I'm just going to go and do my own thing, but did not take the time to teach his child or his daughter the proper way to interact with those that they don't agree with. So now everybody's fighting, but we ain't fighting the right fight. Okay, and I want you to know that this is a time where things have to change. We saw on yesterday how they refused to prosecute a person responsible for creating riots, but then got on the news shortly after and wanted to condemn the same behavior they would not convict. God help me. Let me help you. It's time out for us as a community just going along to get along. Quit taking everything that they say. So here in verse number 3, because I got to preach the text. Here in verse number 3, he says, certainly sons are a gift from the Lord. That they're the fruit of the womb, they're a reward. Can I help somebody? Children are a heritage. They are an inheritance, and they are a reward and should be counted as blessings and not burdens. Can I help you? Stop calling your son a bastard because you mad at his daddy. Stop telling him he's going to always be like this no good so-and-so. Because he wasn't a no good so-and-so when you laid with him. Okay. He was cool as long as he was doing what you wanted, but now because he won't come to the bedroom no more, now because he done figured out, you know what, this just wasn't working for us, and us being together did more damage to the psyche of our children. It's better sometimes that we separate so that we can co-parent together, because I'd rather partner with you to raise a strong black man than stay with you and raise a damaged black boy. Says that they are blessings and not burdens. You ought not ever be telling your child how much they get on your nerve because they did not ask to be here. They're here now because you couldn't control your lust and your fleshly desire, but God saw something in you worth letting you bring something else wonderful into the world, and now you have a responsibility to make sure that they know how to stand with their back up straight. Why are we always saying how bad our children are? When was the last time the men in the community got together and started protecting the community? When was the last time the men in the community got together and started banding around and started mentoring our boys? Oh, but I got news for you. Most times the reason that can't happen is because we got mamas who mama their boys to death and won't let nobody charge and chastise that Negro when he wrong. Time is out. We are losing ground day by day. Something has to change, and it used to be a time that you can bring your children to church, and if you didn't have a man at home, you could trust the deacons, because the deacons will make sure that your boy was going to be safe. And now we got an issue where can't nobody tell your child what to do, and that's why your child is whooping your tail. All because they wanted the man out the house. Brothers, can I tell you that although they wanted you out the house, you didn't have to leave the life of the child. You still have responsibility to teach them how to become and how to recognize that they are gifts from the Lord. See, we must realize that after all we have gone through and all we have fussed about, God allowed us to have children. And he gave us children so that we would raise them in the right way and instill the proper values and ideals as relates to God, as relates to family, and as it relates to community. Truth is, we're not teaching our children what pleases God. We teach our children what satisfies our ego. And I've come to tell you, it's our ego that has helped to add to the decaying of the black community and the black family. And so therefore we must place in them what it is to move from struggle to success. We have to make sure that we start highlighting those in our community, even those in our family who may have been flawed, but they still making it. And we've got to let them know, no, you ain't got to be perfect, but we need you to keep on trying. We need you to make sure that you're doing what you have to do so you can excel in the classroom, because they can't handle you when you got your smarts together. They can't handle you when you know the law and know how to use it. They can't handle you when you walk in the boardroom with your pants on your waist without your clothes sagging. They can't handle you when you know how to talk proper diction. They can't handle you when you walk with a monicum of education and you have some self-worth and some self-pride. They can't handle you then. Truth is, everybody wants to be a sports player. And praise God for those who make it. But we have to start pushing education over our sports achievements, because if your knee goes out, if your ankle break, you got to have something else to fall back on. And that's why we got to go back to teaching our young boys how to have a business plan, how to write checks, how to budget the checkbook. And see, I got news for you, Deacon D. Barry. I'm gonna say something that ain't really popular, but it's true. Now, I don't condone selling drugs. I don't condone it. But if you, as a black man, knew how to manage your keys, you distributed, you knew what you were supposed to get back. You knew how much this was going to cost to do that. You knew what materials to buy to do this and that. Why can't you take that same knowledge and understanding and then put it into our black boys to teach them you ain't got to be in the streets, but I'm going to teach you how to use the same process to make sure that you got your own business. I'm going to use the same process to teach you how to do something that's going to uplift your community. I've come to tell you, black men ain't stupid, we ain't dumb, and we got a lot more to offer. We ain't all crooks and criminals, we ain't all cutthroats, but I've come to tell you, black man, come back home. Come back home. And even if you mad at them, keep your mouth off of them. Quit dogging the children's father to the children. And then in the same breath, when you can't handle him no more, you want to send him to the same man you won't even respect. And then wonder why they bumping heads. No, don't work like that. See, in church, we just want to do a good jig. We want to dance a little while, but we don't take the time to look at our responsibility. Once the church doors are closed and the windows are closed, we don't take the time to look at what we need to do. And what we must do as African American men and women on these mundane shores of life is go back and reestablish what it means to have family. We have to go back and reestablish what it means to be community. Because truth is, ain't nobody perfect. And the moment you realize that, the better off you'll start being. I ain't saying don't have standards, Brittany Rose, but I'm saying at least meet the standards you set. If you're going to say he ain't living up to it, are you living up to what you expect him to live up to? Because they understood that as long as the black man was in the home, then verse number 4 becomes reality. Verse 4 says, like arrows in the hand of a warrior are the sons born in one's youth. What do you mean? This means that as long as the man is there, because he's going to protect his woman, and when the son sees the father respecting his mama, then the son grows up respecting women. And then he ain't calling them, okay, I can't say what I want to say, but you know what they say. He ain't calling them all types of things, and he ain't just laying up. See, mama, you got to make sure that boy, if he's 31 years old, ain't still sleeping past noon in your basement because you ain't pushed him to get a job, because you still mad because daddy left. No, you've got to teach him, son, you are an arrow. And although the father may have dropped the ball, there are still some good men out here that we can use as an example, so that when you are aimed and pointed in the right direction, you're able to fulfill the desire of what the arrow's supposed to do. One of the things we have to stop doing in our families is pitting our children against one another. Yeah, I told you this one going to make you shout today. Because I want you to understand that all of our children are instruments of good for their parents and for their families. And they are used to help fortify against our enemies. But can I tell you a secret? Just like every
arrow in the quiver. Y'all know what a quiver is, don't you? A quiver is that thing that the arrows are placed in to hold the arrow so that when he reaches back to pull an arrow, he's pulling it from his quiver. He's pulling it from the thing that he has created to help support the weight of the arrows that he's carrying. And a lot of times, because we are always fighting one another and we're so disenfranchised one with the other, our quivers have become weakened. And so now they're not supporting what they're supposed to support. And now, instead of celebrating the differences in our children and the fact that everybody, although they're different, Brother Chris, they still have a purpose and they still have use. And so instead of celebrating that and knowing how to use them in the proper way, we get mad because everybody ain't the same. And then we start talking down to them, not knowing that in the process we're destroying our own foundation and we are consistently just weakening the quiver that we got to pull our children or our arrows from. That's why when some children leave home, they don't return, not because they don't love you, but because they know that when I was at home, I was weak, but when I left, I was strong. That's why our children join gangs, because the gangs represent for them what they should have got in the house. It's time out for us making excuses, but better yet, it's time for us to celebrate the different capacities and inclinations that we have in our families. Yeah, you the athlete, that's cool, but the athlete shouldn't get more credit than the academician. You the academician, but you shouldn't get more credit than the athlete. Because I want you to understand, everybody has a role to play, and the removal of the black men and boys from the home was designed to leave the house and the community with a weakened defense. So here in Psalms, the Bible has shown us the role and responsibility of the boys who must be trained on how to act. But those who are doing the training has to be responsible enough to know that you are shaping these boys and you must shape your daughters to the glory of God. And when you shape them to the glory of God, then God reveals their purpose to them. And once God reveals their purpose and they begin to operate in purpose and not preference, then they are able to do exceedingly abundantly above more than you think that they were ever able to do. Why? Because you've given them back to the one who gave them to you in the first place. Because the truth is, you don't know how to handle them the way you need to handle them unless the Lord tells you how. Watch this. The children in verse 5 says that they are to stand, Barnett, at the gate. And them standing at the gate is where the foes would come to, because if anything was going to happen, it was going to happen at the gate. And what are you saying? We got to get back to the place of making sure that we got somebody protecting our gates. We got to make sure we get back to making sure we got somebody protecting the family, not beating on the family. Black man, take your hands off that woman. Woman, take your hands off that man, because it ain't only men beating women, but it's women beating men. I ain't going to talk about that. That's a message for another time. But how about we all keep our hands to ourselves and realize and go back to the place that God intended for us to be in? Because when he created woman out of the rib of man, he did not pull woman from under his feet, so man ought not walk on woman. He did not pull woman out of his back, so she's not behind woman. He pulled woman from his rib, so she's to stand beside man. And I come to tell you, when the black community starts standing up together, we stop being jealous of one another. There's nothing that we can accomplish. When was the last time the black man and black woman got together and banded together and sang the same song that we shall overcome? How are we going to overcome? We overcome when we get ourselves together and realize that there is value and power in our community. want you to know, black folk ain't poor. They ain't stupid. They ain't less than. They just didn't realize the trap that was being set. God help me. They are happy when we think like a minority. All right. I think I done lost some of y'all. See, get this. If you didn't matter, they wouldn't want your vote. If you didn't matter, they stopped breaking their neck to come and speak at the black church. Because what they want is our influence. God, can I help you? Can I help you? Everything in this country is either a result of black people or from the influence of black people. The White House he lives in was built by us. Okay, maybe you just can't wrap your head around that. How about the pyramids that are still in existence today, that still got folks scratching their head trying to figure out how did you put this together without any kind of construction equipment, but it was done by black men who knew how to engineer things, to put things together, and they put this stone on top of this stone, and they poured this stone up here, and they knew how to do the mathematics to make sure that the dimensions were some of the greatest that the world has ever seen. And even now they still over there trying to figure out how in the world these Negroes did it. I'm gonna tell you how we did it. We did it because God put something in us that he didn't give nobody else. God put something in us that showed how valuable we were. What did he do? He gave us the breath of life. We are God's creation, and as we are dealing with our families, as we are dealing with our community, we must direct them to God's glory. We must push them to service their community. We must push them to service their family, and we must push them to service their self. We got to start teaching self-love to our children, telling them that it's okay not to be like everybody else. But the greatest gift you can give the world is the gift of your authentic self. I'm so tired of everybody trying to make you into something you are not. No, that's why when you cuss, it don't even sound right, because that ain't even you. That's why when you go to rob a bank or something, you always get caught, because that ain't you. That's not what you were created for. And I've come to tell you, the reason they removed the black man from the home is because they knew what the black man was created for. They understood that if the black man ever realized what he could do, then that their world and their plans would be in trouble. That's why during slavery they would rape the black man, because they had to break his will and his spirit. But I've come to tell you, not no longer shall our spirits be broken. Not no longer shall our will be broken. But we're going to come back, and we're coming back strong. Black man, I need you to stand up. Black woman, I need you to stand up. Let's pull the family back together. Let's go back to building our community. When was the last time the liquor store in our community was owned by somebody that looked like us? When was the last time you went to the hair store and the people at the hair store wasn't just working there, but they owned the store? When was the last time your family got together and said, we're going to get Pookie off of food stamps, we're going to get Ray Ray off of assistance, we're going to band together and put somebody in our family through school? When was the last time we actually put feet behind the song, we shall overcome? What are you doing to overcome? We can't keep talking about black empowerment only in February. This goes beyond February. You have gifts. You have talents. You have ability. I said a long time ago, Brittany Rose, that if they don't invite you to the table, then go get a hammer and nails and build your own. Let's stop destroying the community from within. It's okay to sit down and say, I missed it. But you ain't got to keep missing it. Let's pull our communities back together. See, when Reagan brought the drugs, deburied, they dropped them in the black community because that's what they wanted to destroy. How much more do we have to see that their plan is to get rid of the biggest threat to them? And the biggest threat is an educated Negro. And you're dumbing down who you are to make folk who are inferior to you feel comfortable. They ain't got no qualms about playing up what they got to make you feel inferior. We thank God that Kamala Harris is vice president, but can I tell you, it didn't start with her. But she's standing on the shoulders of women who fought through a struggle. So that as black women, you have a lasting legacy. And so why you always hating on each other? Why you fighting over the same man that ain't doing neither one of y'all right? Let the Negro go. Black men, we had a man in the White House that looked like us. Couldn't find a scandal on him nowhere. Faithful to his wife and his children. And was called everything under the sun, but he still held his head high. Brother, I come to tell you, you don't have to buckle because they calling you something that's not your name. You ain't got the answer to it. Stop turning around and stop giving people who are beneath you your time and attention. It's time to take that same effort and energy and put it into building up our sons and our daughters, pulling our communities back together. They don't want the black man in the house, but I'm telling you, it's time for you to come back home. Black man, come back to your family. Come back to church. Most of all, come back to God. Because it is with God, He'll help you maintain your family. And He'll push you to be a credit to your church. I don't care what we're doing in this life, we can't do it without God. And every ploy and plot, and the doors of the church are open, but every ploy and plot that has been handed down has been used to try to systematically destroy the black community. But no longer are we falling for the banana in the tailpipe. Brother, you are worth more alive than dead. Brother, we don't want you to go to the grave with dreams unfulfilled, with business plans that were never made manifest. So no, I understand maybe the bank won't give you the loan, but if we start doing community again, maybe the community can give you the backing that you need. Sigmund Freud said it like this. He said, man is nothing more than the bundle of sex drives good for nothing but work. But I want you to know God said that you were created in His image and in His likeness. So my brother, get up. Hold up your head. Embrace your children. Make amends with the family that you've left. Families, come back together and make amends and get things straight. I know the divorce was hard. I know the divorce was rough, but it's time to come back together and say, for the sake of family, we ain't got to be together to make movements together. You ain't got to be in the same bed to make progress. You just got to be of the same mind. And that mind has to be, we got to do better than this. So if that's you, if you're out there and you don't know Jesus and the pardoning of your sin, then we extend our hands to you.